The Joe Rogan Experience.
You know, I wrote a piece a long time ago on my blog, and I talked about it in one of my comedy specials, that I had a crazy experience with dolphins once, when I was really, really high. And I had this, I mean, it sounds silly to even talk about, but I almost feel like I kind of understood that they're like us, but they just don't alter their environment. Well, I realized, like, when they were playing with us, when they were jumping by the boat, and they were looking at you. They were looking at you while they were jumping around with the boat. And I was like, they're playing, and they're looking at you like a person would, like a water person.
Interacting. There's almost a language at this point. There's some level of bridged gap in the communication when you get to see that they're expressing themselves in interest in you and whatnot, and scoping you. And when you get really close and establish a relationship with these animals, that's when things start getting real squirrely, because you start to find that happy medium language. And now all of a sudden you are starting to sort of speak, so to say.
Yeah. Well, I started getting really weird feelings about SeaWorld and animal captivity. Like, this, why do we need that in this day and age? Like, this isn't the dark ages. We shouldn't be putting whales and orcas and dolphins, putting them in these tanks, these fucking swimming pools. They're fucking swimming pools. And you have these things that are probably as smart as us in some different way. Like, we're so prejudiced in that we only think of intelligence as something that can manipulate its environment. That's our problem. Like, we're like, look at them. They're a bitch-ass world. They don't have any houses. They can't write a letter. They're fucking stupid, man. Stop it. They're stupid. But the dolphins apparently have a cerebral cortex that's something around 40% larger than a human being's. They have super complex languages.
Their emotional intelligence is the mystery, and it appears that it's far beyond anything we ourselves can understand. Same as orcas. They've got that. They've got another part of the brain in the front, which is its function in the front of the cerebral cortex. That function is to it's for communication and it enhances their emotional capacity to a point where we don't really know the depth of which they are, the power of their emotion, but we know that they stay with their families for their lifetimes. The males born from the mothers will rarely leave the mother's side, quite literally the distance of an orca itself. The only time that male will go on is when it's matured, and it will go to procreate and then back to the mother, and it will live its entire life as such. And the sad fact about that is, in my experience, working with male orcas, one of which caught from the wild, a big bull orca, he was a mama's boy. You can see something was missing. He was traumatized from something, and of course, even myself, as a regarded whale expert in the capacity of working at a frickin' place like Marineland, even I would have never known this information when I started this. This is not information that was available to us I started in 2000. It makes sense now. This animal is traumatized from birth. His will to live is just gone. The male, it appears to me, and in my experience, the male sex of, I've worked with seals, I've worked with sea lions, I've worked with walruses, dolphins, belugas, and orcas. All of them die younger. The males die younger. And I think, definitely in the orcas and the dolphins cases, is they just don't have that will to live without that strong maternal figure in their life.
This is what I try to explain to people that don't see it, and they think that the dolphins get treated well or the orcas get treated well. This is what imagine if someone stole your son and put him in an air box at the bottom of the ocean, and dolphins and whales and fish just came by and stared at him. Imagine. And he lives his life like that, with no contact other than with his dolphin handlers or whoever's taking care of him. And he just lives in this box, missing his family, missing his loved ones, missing his life.
Confused, lost.
And with a language that is, especially with orcas and dolphins, they have a language that's so complex, we haven't been able to really decipher it. We don't understand how it works. You know, John Lilly spent, I think, decades working on trying to get dolphins to speak human noises. He had a bunch of studies that he did, and he even had it's a crazy story. I'm sure you've heard of it.
I'm
The woman
aware.
who lived with the dolphin, she tried to establish a relationship with the dolphin where they made an apartment that was half underwater, but the dolphin always wanted to fuck. So she just jerked the dolphin off. And when she jerked the dolphin off, that was the only thing that calmed him down. And then she could do her work. So for her, it was just like a technicality. I just got to jerk this dolphin off. It's an animal. It wants to be rubbed. All the moral stuff that's attached to that is all in my own head. She's like, I'm just going to be a scientist. And they were like, God, get that fuck. What?
I think they were also injecting ketamine into the dolphins or something as well.
I do not know if they were doing that into dolphins, but I do know that they did some experiments with LSD, and that John Lilly, who is one of my personal heroes, he's the creator of the flotation tank. This was all John Lilly stuff. He was a pioneer in interspecies communication. He would take acid and think that he was communicating with dolphins.
Did you know you're on the cover of one of his books?
What?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
Your face is, I mean, it's a spitting image in one of his books.
One of Lily's books?
Yeah.
Dude, this
I have to look this up.
creepy
Maybe even a simple
conspiracy
Google
time
search of
traveler shit.
Dude, it's in there.
What
You
is
are.
it?
How is that not you,
Whoa.
man? I'm sorry. How is that
Whoa,
not
that's
you?
fucking weird, man. That's fucking weird.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's program. I can't read that. What does it say? Something?
The
Programming the
human
human computer.
biocomputer?
Yeah, biocomputer.
Yeah. I didn't read that one. I read the Deep Self, though. The Deep Self's really interesting. And the Deep Self, I think the Deep Self is the one that also has diagrams on how to build a tank. He was trying to get people to build tanks. He was like, listen, man, I found some shit out. You got to try this.
The last time I was here, not the last time, 2 times ago, you actually sent me to Crash.
Yeah. My
And,
man Crash. Shout
yeah.
out to Crash at the Float Lab.
Yeah, and he, I thought I'd be in there for an hour. It turns out I was in there for a couple. And when I came out, I'm like, dude, I was waiting for the knock. He's just like, oh, no, man, let's just let you stay in there. I'm like, oh, shit. I'm looking at the time going,
Crash
where
is
am I?
like a legit hippie.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He's great.
He's great. He's the mad scientist behind Float Lab.
Yeah.
That's why those things are so well engineered. When I met him, I was like, what? I was like, because tanks before that, when I first got a tank in like 2002, somewhere around then, 2002, 2003, and it was great, but it was like it would break. Things would go wrong. It flooded my basement. It was like there was disasters. It wasn't. And then my friend who was a tank technician. There's actually tank technicians. He said, "Listen, you got to check out this guy in Venice. So some mad scientist down there in Venice was just making these super over-engineered float tanks." And he goes, "They look like walk-in meat lockers."
Right.
I was like, "What?" And then
So
he
you had
showed
a
me.
pod? You had like a pod installed?
I had it was a very good tank. It's just that it wasn't as well constructed. It also wasn't nearly as expensive. It just
He went the distance.
He went the
for it,
distance, and he still keeps coming over here. I've got to change things. We're upgrading. We're doing. It's like he's always
Good for him, man.
Always
He's trying to enhance the experience for everyone. I mean,
yeah,
why not?
he's always trying to make it better. He's the front of the line. And when I first started working with him, like when I first started having him on the podcast and I hired him to build me a tank and all that jazz, like there was no tanks. It was real rare that you'd find tank centers. Now they're fucking everywhere, man. They're everywhere.
Well, I'll say this: the experience I had in his tank versus the one that there's a local place from where I'm from was hands down a different
Yeah.
experience because he really isolates you there. Whereas this was like a pod that they'd bought and installed in a room. I mean, it was a great place.
Well, his is super insulated, so there's no fucking noise getting in that thing.
And he gave me the tour, the whole backstage tour.
Yeah.
I was all back there checking shit out. I was like,
It's
wow,
wild,
man,
right?
it's got a serious complex there.
It's hard to appreciate, but when he first started making tanks like that, which, like, again, I think I bought one of his tanks in 2005, I think, somewhere around then. Dude, there was no one making anything like that. He's making these super high-end, crazy fucking double wall insulated tanks, and you get in there, it's just nothing.
Yeah,
Just nothing. And you just
You sort of get swallowed into the nowhere.
You just get taken into and it's a good place to think about the subject.